Joining us now is New Yorker contributing writer Ronan Farrow, who's written the definitive book on the practice at the center of this trial. The title, Catch and Kill, Lies, Spies, and a Conspiracy to Protect Predators. So Ronan, we learned today that several stories that you helped uncover will be allowed to be taken into evidence in this trial, including allowing Karen McDougal to testify. How important do you think her story is to this trial, to the larger picture?
It's pivotal, and it's a pivotal moment in this case that Judge Merchan is saying, look, this is essential material to establishing the narrative being that there was indeed a scheme between Donald Trump and the National Enquirer, and that these payments had an electoral intent. And the evidence of a series of payments, not just to Stormy Daniel, which is the central transaction at issue, but also to Karen McDougal, who you mentioned, potentially to the doorman at Trump Tower, who was paid off for exclusive rights to a rumor he'd heard about, that Trump had an affair and fathered a child with an employee. We don't know whether that rumor is accurate, but we do know that there was a payment from the National Enquirer in order to lock up that doorman in silence. All of that has figured in legal documents around this case. And the fact that it's now going to figure in front of jurors is significant. It's the crux of it.
I spoke to McDougal in 2018. I just want to play some of what she had to say. Once Donald Trump won the Republican nomination,
right, correct.
You're saying AMI suddenly came back to you with interest in
the
story.
To Keith, yes, to us for the story, yeah.
Why do you think it was that it was after Donald Trump was the Republican nominee that they came back?
They wanted to squash the story.
You're saying they wanted to protect Donald Trump?
I'm assuming so, yeah.
If Donald Trump hadn't been running for president, do you believe this deal would have been made with AMI? Knowing what you know now?
Probably not. No. Probably not.
You're convinced now this was an effort to do a favor for Donald Trump in the last few months of the presidential race?
Unfortunately, yes.
How pivotal do you think her actual testimony would be?
Well, we don't yet know whether that testimony will be a part of this trial. It was let in, theoretically, but the judge also made a hedging comment saying, we don't know whether the probative value of that would outweigh the potential prejudicial effect of it. So we'll see. What we do know from both of our interactions with Karen McDougal and the way she's behaved with other journalists is she's been willing to turn whistleblower on this matter. She expressed to me multiple times in our interviews that she felt a sense of guilt about having been dragged into a scheme with electoral implications, which wasn't her intention in the first place. So we have a sense that she's going to be willing to help the prosecution in this case. We also have a strong sense that figures at AMI, the then parent company of the National Enquirer, are going to be willing to help. David Pecker, for instance, has gone in and met with prosecutors around the inquiries into Trump and the hush payments from basically square one. So there's a roster of individuals who can speak to the fact that this was a scheme to influence the election, something that the Trump folks denied to me from the beginning of this reporting, and then gradually have had to admit to.
Last time you and I spoke, you said that you weren't sure whether there's a strong case yet, given where things stand after today. What do you think? But given the, you had said that given sort of the unique nature of these charges.
So Trump is obviously facing a variety of criminal proceedings around the country. There's these 4 ongoing cases. It is true that most legal experts regard this as one of the thinner ones. Theoretically, each of these charges in this case could carry a multi-year sentence, but more likely any sentence would be served concurrently with any other sentence in this case. And it's very possible that Trump won't get any jail time for something of this level of severity. There are other cases ongoing that could be more severe. However, this case is consequential in part because it's the one that we may see resolution on first before the election. So this is something that is going to have a big effect on the media cycle, a big effect on the election. And I will say that from what we've seen in the early proceedings, this judge pushing back very hard against efforts by Trump's defense to delay things, efforts to force the judge to recuse himself. All of that does suggest that you have someone in that position who is not a pushover and who is going to go hard on this. He did grant at least one motion that the defense brought forward today. He's clearly making a great show of being even-handed in the face of a A lot of broadsides from Trump, who's been attacking this judge on social media, potentially in violation of a gag order. There'll be a hearing about that in several weeks. But he's also making it clear that he's not going to fold.